Hey there everyone, and welcome to DnD Horror Stories with DnD Doge. Have you ever joined a Dungeons & Dragons group only to find out that over half of the players use it to play out a horny anime-style bathhouse scene? No? Well, this person did. To the post. 2-hour-long bathhouse scene with no cuts back to the other characters. By Reddit user Sufficient Bullfrog 82. This is my first, and hopefully last, time doing one of these, and the incident in question was a year ago, so go easy on me. For years, I was a massive D&D nut, but suffered from the common issue of not having anybody to play with, leading to me constantly stalking tabletop RPG communities on Discord, looking for people I could play with. One day, I managed to strike up a chat with a dungeon master looking for another player, because they had a last-minute dropout 2 to 3 sessions in. I jumped on the offer like a rabid dog on meat, spending hours in voice chat, asking questions about the homebrewed setting, and listening to the lore about the continent. And I decided I had the perfect character in mind. I decided I'd play a little trickster gremlin of a changeling, met the rest of the group, got basic ideas about their characters, and within a week, I was sitting down to play. Now, to give some needed context, in this setting, Dragonborn are essentially draconic sorcerers, capable of shifting between human and more draconic forms with simple magic. The DM had a DMPC that stuck with the party, the last of the golden Dragonborn, thought to have gone extinct. Oh god. I think I can see where this is going. A super special DMPC. During a quest in the session before I joined, involving escorting her to a safe house, it had been revealed, and 2 of the characters who knew her for all of a day were already in a relationship with her. But back to the session I joined. I was offered to introduce my character while the party split up to buy supplies and have some downtime. We hadn't really given my character a reason to tag along with the party beforehand, but that's really my fault, and I should have discussed it more with my game master. I met up with the artificer, who had rented out a local forge to enhance his magical cannon gun thing, pestering him as he worked. That conversation lasted for all of 10 to 15 minutes, before we cut to the other 2-player characters and the Dragonborn, who immediately ditched shopping to go to a bathhouse together, and essentially just hit on each other and skirting the line of what would facilitate a quote fade to black. So essentially, the DM and these 2 players were just horny posting. For 2 uninterrupted hours. The only pause was for a brief 5-minute chance for the very tired artificer and I to try and get back into the swing of things, enough for us to improv a reason why I'd be part of the party. Then right back to the Dragonborn and her lovers, straight up until 1 AM, where the Game Master called the session. The funniest part is that there was never another session. The Game Master just completely dropped the game, and I never spoke to any of them again. Now, I'm no prude, and while younger me was kind of a jackass, I was also easily entertained and excited just to have a reason to play a character and talk to others. If you want to play a game where a relationship happens, fine, great even. I'd prefer if there was some actual, meaningful development that is shown in the relationship, or it's meant to say something about the characters. But now I'm just being picky. The issue is, when you have 2 friends decide to go on a horny romp, while 2 folks who were clearly expecting an enjoyable fantasy romp are dragged along for the ride. Moral of the story: Discord was a mistake. Well, I can see how that would be super annoying and a big waste of time. It sounds like the DM was just too into the horny roleplay that they were doing with the 2 other players to give 1 ounce of a care about the other 2 just sitting there and doing nothing. I mean, you would think that one of the other players that was in the long bathhouse roleplay sessions would eventually be like, "Hey, DM, we've been doing this for a long time. don't you think we ought to give some more time to the other players? Or even the artificer could have spoke up and said something. I can understand OP not piping up since this was their first session with this group, and wouldn't want to seem to be intrusive. But even with that, after 2 hours of waiting, I think I would have said something. But in the end, it's not like it matters anyway, as it seems that the DM got enough of their rocks off with that one session to last a campaign, and just dropped the whole thing. Though hopefully, OP can find a new group that will actually, I don't know, play D&D instead of Anime Bathhouse Simulator. But with that, before we move on, if you enjoy these videos, clicking that like button really does go a long way to help out the channel, and even subscribing if you haven't already. Plus, it keeps Simba in Zen mode. He's so peaceful. But with that said, let's move on to this next story, where a dungeon master vents their frustration about a player that is way too focused on wanting a spider horse. To the post. Taming the Spider by Reddit user Doc Bedlam. You want to tame the spider. You want to tame the spider that is the size of a horse, that is in the middle of the combat encounter with the party, being commanded by a triad of drow. You who have no animal handling skills whatsoever, no experience with animals or spiders in your backstory, as opposed to drow who practically went to high school with them. You are becoming irate with me. You accuse me of not wanting you to tame the spider, who is even now trying to eat you, because I don't want you to have a giant spider that you could theoretically put a saddle on and ride into battle, because I am being unfair. You, who are being attacked by drow and spiders, expect that a spider is going to roll over for belly rubs in mid-battle because reasons. Hell, why don't you try and tame the drow? At least they can understand what you're saying. But no, you want the horse-sized spider, and you don't understand why you can't tame a giant homicidal arthropod in the middle of a battle. You have no animal handling skills, no magic, no empathic powers, psionics, or even much of a charisma score. You're not a ranger, you're a rogue for potato's sake. So, alright, fine, Peachy, how do you want to do this? You open your pack in mid-battle and offer the giant spider a serving of iron rations. No, you vapor-brained nitwit, the spider does not want your iron rations. In fact, given a spider's intelligence and diet, it's better than even odds that he doesn't even understand that iron rations are food. And yes, he did hit you, because you gave up your initiative to open your pack and go looking for your lunch, instead of defending yourself from the giant fraggin' spider. Long sigh. No. Spiders do not eat dried fruit, or jerky, or nuts, or cheese. In fact, every variety of spider I ever heard of is a feckin' predatory liquivore who injects his victim with poison and digestive juices, and then sucks him dry like a frickin' milkshake. He does not want your cheese and dried apples. He wants yummy, tasty you. He wants to kill you and eat you in the manner described above. Though I'm a dick. Why am I a dick? For telling you that trying to tame a monster in mid-battle is an extremely bad idea? Oh, because the spider continues to attack, despite your friendly overtures. The spider does not give a bucket of farts about your friendly overtures. Its drow masters command it to attack. This command agrees with its predatory instincts. It does not care if you are friendly. It doesn't care if you fight back. It's going to attack you until your hit points are gone, and then suck you dry like Kid Rock treats a six-pack, Charlie. I'm a dick because horse-sized spiders might not be predators. They might just like cheese and dried apples, and I refuse to stop the entire game in mid-combat to break out the monster manual and determine the dietary preferences of spiders, giant ones at that. And no, I'm not going to do that. And if you don't tell me what you're doing this turn, the spider is going to take initiative and bite you again. And now, we're back to, I just don't want you to have a pet spider. To be honest, that's neither here nor there. The drow have pet spiders. Dugar have pet spiders. Ettercaps have pet spiders. And not one of them pitched a fit because their spiders wouldn't hold still for cheese and dried apples. No, just no. Either fight, or come up with some sort of semi-coherent plan, with full explanation of why the spider would suddenly disobey its drow masters, because you're just so froggin' charismatic with your cheese and dried apples. Why yes, I could explain. Drow and Dugar raised their spiders from hatchlings. They have dedicated animal handling skills passed down for generations, and they still have to work at keeping the little 8-legged horrors from attacking them, particularly when they're hungry. I hear they go through a lot of goblin slaves, especially in mating season. Such is the way of wildly unintelligent, instinct-driven predatory arachnids. But these drow and Dugar, they know what they're doing. You don't. You don't even know what spiders eat, and yet you want this one to lay down and be your teddy bear. Well, this is what we call wishful thinking. And I'm afraid I'm not going to honor it, or stop the game in mid-fight to provide detailed instructions on precisely how one would go about taming a giant spider. No, there are 5 other people at the table, and I'm going to respect their wish to play D&D, as opposed to stopping the world because you want a lecture on advanced arachnology. Capiche? Ah, I'm a dick, and you don't want to play. Fine, door's right there. Step away from the table, Charlie. And do let me know when you find a dungeon master who's ready to play the game your way. Well, something tells me that OP here is a bit frustrated. And honestly, I can just tell from the way OP posted that this player was a problem. To drive a dungeon master to this point of rage tells me that a simple no from OP did not suffice. And this player just would not let the issue of him trying to tame a giant spider go. I mean, OP had all the right and logic at their side for not letting that happen. Sure, there is always the rule of cool, but this whole taming a spider mid-combat with no animal handling is a reach too far out of reality, even for a fantasy game, and I feel OP's rage is justified. Though at least it sounded like the problem took itself out in this case, as far as I can tell. And hopefully, OP and the rest of the players had a fun battle, and were able to continue that campaign. Now, before we get to the following story, I just gotta take a minute to say thank you to James Irish for donating $5 via Ko-Fi, and saying, quote, "This most recent video made my Monday. Thank you." And I'm glad that it did, and thank you for your donation. And also to Granite Hair Gaming, who donated $25 and said, "Here's $1, give or take a few, for every time you laughed at PP in today's video." And if anyone is wondering what they are talking about there, you will just have to check out this previous video to understand what they're referencing. And yes, I did kinda lose my gourd at that first story. So again, a big thank you to those two. Your help is always appreciated. But with that, we have another story to get to, where a dungeon master gives his players some cupcakes, but with a sick twist. To the post. Our DM surprise drugged me and the other players. By Reddit user, Katie with a C. Back in 2015, I was a 22-year-old woman, straight out of college, and had just discovered the joy that is D&D thanks to Critical Role. Through a friend of a friend, I managed to find a group for my then boyfriend, his best friend, and myself to join. The DM was a man in his 40s who we didn't know well, but I'm sure as people know, it can be hard to find a dungeon master. The first couple of sessions went fine, so we didn't think twice when he invited us to another one. He lived about an hour away from us, so we all got into the car together and drove to his place. There were 2 other player characters in addition to us 3. Within the game, our characters meet with an official, who offers us refreshments during the meeting. The refreshments are cupcakes, and at this point, the DM goes into his kitchen and brings out cupcakes he made for the session. I thought it was super sweet. We start eating the cupcakes as we play, and then the DM tells us to make saving throws. It turns out the cupcakes in-game are drugged and are intended to knock our characters out. The official is secretly evil and trying to set us up. So far, so good. Then, the Dungeon Master drops the fact that the cupcakes that we are actually eating in real life are also drugged. We immediately ask what the hell he means, and he says that these cupcakes are edibles. I don't do any drugs, so I'm pretty upset to learn this. In addition, we drove there, which means we need to drive home. We point this out to him, and he says that the dose is low, so it's no big deal. At this point, we should have left, but we stayed to finish playing the session, because we were young and struggled to assert ourselves. My boyfriend and his friend are playing dwarves, so they had advantage on saves against poisons. I happened to roll a natural 20. As a result, the drugs didn't work on our characters. This clearly frustrates the DM, who tells us there's no way out of the room, and that we're going to be restrained no matter what. He doesn't let us play it out, just tells us that we're knocked out, because clearly that's what he had planned. We then wake up on a ship. We're confused, because we had a pretty clear story going on before this, and it becomes clear that the DM scrapped that entire story and is trying to completely shift gears to a pirate adventure. My boyfriend's friend is pissed about this entire situation, so he starts talking back in-game to the pirate captain. She whips him every time he talks back, and he immediately does 1 point of damage, with no AC check, and no chance for him to fight back. He doesn't let this discourage him, and continues to insult her. The DM is frustrated, and is like, "Seriously, man, stop talking back to her, or she's going to kill you." And my boyfriend's friend says, "Okay, then I die." At this point, the session understandably ends. I had only taken like 1 bite of the cupcake, so I took the risk to drive home, since we were an hour away from our homes. We communicated with the DM online that we did not appreciate the surprise drugging, and he gave a half-assed apology and tried to schedule another session, but we told him that we weren't interested. He proceeded to send my boyfriend an angry message telling us that we're awful players and people. So that was fun. Well, that sounded like a pretty disjointed game, with some major railroading by the Dungeon Master, so I could understand the frustration everyone had with the sudden tonal shift of the campaign. But there was something else that was problematic about this whole thing. Oh wait, that's right. How could I forget that this DM drugged the party without telling them? A badly paced and railroaded campaign is one thing, but to secretly drug people is another. And I don't care that it was likely only weed. I mean, even people that smoke that stuff know that eating it is a whole nother story. And the excuse of, "It wasn't that high of a dose," is no excuse at all. I mean, this dude was in his 40s. He should have known better, and should thank his lucky stars that nothing bad came from it. So yeah, I don't blame the group at all for not going back to that game. I mean, what the actual fuck? But as it looks, it seems like I have time for one more DnD horror story, in which a dungeon master gets a tad too upset at how the dice fall for their players. To the post. Dungeon Master gets upset when we deal damage. By Reddit user DnD. So I've been playing in a game with 4 other people for about a year now, and I've started noticing that the DM seems to get upset whenever we survive combat with an enemy. For simplicity, I will call our party by class names: Monk, Bard, Paladin, and Cleric. The past couple of sessions, we have been traversing through a haunted forest, and our Dungeon Master decided to put us up against 16 bandits, including a wizard and a bandit captain. The fight went off quite well, as our paladin took the front and dealt a decent amount of damage with his attacks, before we were able to group the bandits together and have our cleric fireball them. They are playing late domain, to finally take out the group. The session ended after we took out the captain, and our dungeon master started talking about how they had developed a large amount of lore for the bandits that we would now never get to know. The dungeon master seemed upset when she talked about this, which will come up later. The next session, we continued our travel through the woods, doing bits of roleplay. At one point, the paladin, who had their oath broken by a cultist who cursed them, came up with an interesting idea to create a new path. They decided that they would go pray to their god under a full moon on their birthday to reform their connection with their god. The paladin decided to go through with this plan, writing up a prayer to use during the process. After the player finished, paladin got their oath, and we continued on. Now that paladin had a new path though, they entered a dream sequence where they fought an evil version of themselves. The dungeon master narrated them standing on a silvered moonlit lake as they prepared to battle. The initiative was rolled, and paladin went second after the evil version of themselves. The Death Knight attempted to hit paladin, but missed. On their turn, paladin rolled both their attacks, getting a natural 20 on their first roll, and used their inspiration to reroll their second attack. 2 nat 20s. Paladin smited, and the dungeon master started getting upset that paladin was going to one-shot this Death Knight, complaining that paladin shouldn't be able to do that. The DM started getting fed up with how the thing died in one hit, and told paladin that they one-shot it in a super annoyed voice. After this, she started complaining about the bandits we had fought before when we tried to talk with her afterwards. I do have to admit, there are a few times in here that I got pretty annoyed with the DM because she started trying to attack downed players during the bandits fight, which enemies had never done before. Edit. Thanks everyone for the feedback. I will be attempting to talk to the party and the DM. I will keep you all updated on how it goes. For more information, the bandits ambushed us as we traveled, not allowing us to talk with them. There had also been a few encounters in the past, one with an enemy that could end the campaign, and almost did, but everyone sacrificed a lot of what they had, and we ended up losing 2 of our characters, my sorcerer included. Well, sometimes, the dice just go how they go. It sounds to me like this DM might just have some issues in balancing encounters and session prep. Like, if she wanted the party to talk to the bandits, she should have had them waiting along the party's path, and not attack until they talked to the party. And as far as her having enemies attacking downed player characters, perhaps she didn't do that before, because she didn't want to kill the player characters, but then got tired of the party one-upping all of her encounters, and thus decided to have them do that. I mean, from an enemy's perspective, that would be the most logical thing to do. Eliminate the threat. But at least it sounds like OP is taking initiative in talking to the DM to discuss these things, and hopefully, they can come to a resolution that everyone will agree with, so that they can all have fun and continue their Dungeons & Dragons campaign. And so, I wish OP the best of luck. But that is all I have for you today. As always, I really do appreciate all of you who watch and enjoy my videos, and I hope that your games remain D&D Horror Story free. Until next time.